Tony Caravan.
You've been subjected to a highly sophisticated form of propaganda.
It's just what you need.
Good morning, as they say here.
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Yeah, this is I couldn't resist that title. You know, I had to put it up. YouTube seems to be very prompt with their now live for the umpteenth time. We're cattle on a tax farm. The morning show featuring none other than Tony Caravan. And as I mentioned in the description, take it easy, those cows. Pay no attention to those numbers or likes. This show is a hit on the other side. Only next to Cyrus's show. Second. Oh, shut up already. Second most popular show among dead people. I got a link to... I'll talk a little bit more about that. Hey, would you happen to meet the most beautiful? Anyway, I had a decent night's sleep last night. I want to show you something with this thing. So, this ridiculous room. This is, if I can get this on here right. I'll show off my 6-pack abs. No. Actually, if you see, it's a little bit blurred because you can't see the writing there, but the official Tony Caravan shirt. And in the shadows, you can see down there, it says, everything you know is wrong. And you've seen this image. And you know, this isn't like one of those iron-on things you get at one of those goofy, county fair things. Now, this is like silk screened. The classic image, that I also have up. We tilt up there. I have tons of copies of those. And on the back of those things are, oops, it's messing up my whole operation. This isn't a moving camera. And Lord knows what we just destroyed, lost forever. I see I got something from the tax folks. Anyway, it's one of those things that we have to do every Friday.
Weekend weather.
It's time for the weekend weather on the Tony Caravan live show. 6:51 here Eastern Standard Time on March 2nd, 2021. And let's see how the cookie's crumbling. According to this, I'm going to hold this up here. And then I've got to look down here a little bit. Let's see. Let's get that back. Friday, which is today, is 39 and 23. Now, according to this, 38 and 25. Okay, so colder overnight. Tomorrow, Saturday, is going to be 50 and 43 degrees in the mid-Atlantic states. And according to this, my tally, what did I say? 50 and 43. It was supposed to be 54 and 43. And Sunday is looking like 63 and 37. And it was supposed to be 40 degrees. And from there on in, it's kind of in the 60s and the 40s. Let's hope. So my worst nightmare realized, as Woody Allen said in one of his movies, I forget which one. My poor plants. My poor plants. I intentionally slurped that a little bit. I have a mixture of Dr. Thunder diet something or other. And a friend of mine brought me this yesterday. And let's see if you can see that. This is black cherry cream soda. All right. Made with cane sugar and brewed in small batches. Check that out. I think the lighting was better. There we go. Black cherry cane sugar. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to be mixing the two of these together because I don't have much left in my 2-liter thing of Dr. Thunder. So, as usual, this is going to be, or more so than usual, this is going to
It's
be
an excursion into the odd and into the very, very different.
and
Since the first day that man stared up at the stars and saw other worlds, there has been no more haunting question than this. What will we find there? Will there be other creatures? And will they be like us? Or when that ancient dream comes true, will it turn into a nightmare? Will we find on some distant frozen planet an alien life of unimaginable horror?
of unimaginable horror. I wanted to shift gears a little bit. Okay. By the way, this shirt is comfortable as hell. And I highly recommend you get it. And who wouldn't want that classic face? I just received it yesterday. They actually sent it to my friggin' neighbor who I'm having a feud, like the whatever they call it, the Hatfields and McCoys. The most comfortable shirt, though, is still You Don't Know What You Don't Know. Highly recommend getting it. Great solar stuff. And why does it seem weird when I put my hand back there? Is because
Sunrise today is at 6:57 a.m. and sunset is at 7:41 p.m.
that's kind of a lie because it's already kind of light out there. But I guess they mean when the sun rises over the horizon. Depends on your perspective and where the hell you are. I'm in the mid-Atlantic states, in the former United States. And, let's
get this show on the road.
why not? Why not? I'm all for it. So this past week has been a very interesting coverage of, with these shows. And it's been, everything from lunacy to very serious, somber topics to almost, like my sermons on the web. To a deep discussion of the impracticality and contradictions, the dilemma of infrastructure versus dealing with AOC and such the like. But let's take a break away from all that stuff. It's Friday, TGIF. Who knows? I may even have a few imbibe this afternoon, just because it's been such a long time since I think I did it after St. Patrick's Day, but might have been the last time I had a good, in earnest, several hours of imbibing was on St. Patrick's Day, and that was a lot of fun. And for those of you, my brethren that were listening along, especially that last hour, it was great. But that show got nixed by the analytics folks because they said we were playing too many. We were having too much fun playing too many Irish songs. No fun allowed on the internet because YouTube does not pay their royalties to the artists. All right. So anyway, but what's it all about? The thing is, if you ever watch, I put a link down for Cyrus Kirkpatrick. He's a guy who has this Afterlife, a channel and a YouTube discussion group called Afterlife Topics and Metaphysics. And Cyrus is an interesting guy. I've been following him for, I don't know, about a year now, I guess. I've been watching his videos, and so I started watching his videos, and I started to I just kind of subscribe to his YouTube group. I haven't really been commenting on that, and I haven't had time to really go through there that much. But I intend to, because he's into astral projection and this concept of the next level. And a lot of people approach this. This is for some people this topic is just going to be like just totally out there, but just we're going to get into it. But for some it might be almost on this level.
He went forward to another time, 1,000 years from now.
Though it may not be 1,000 years from now. The idea is that in my book, if I could reach it, I talk about the hard problem of consciousness. In fact, on the back cover where you see a different version of my face, every time you see me, I'm different. If you see me in person, I'll pass on the street, you wouldn't see me. First of all, I wouldn't be wearing glasses, so I wouldn't have that like rounded Mickey Mouse face. But the hard problem of consciousness, an adventure for your mind, flow of consciousness. And you could see in here, I even mentioned things such as awareness, ancient text, the soul, dreams, all that sort of stuff. It's a short read. If you look at the side, it's not thick. Fairly big text. And from time to time I do mention other people on my show. And in this instance, I'm saying this is the second most popular show among dead people. And that's why the numbers you see of views and likes don't matter, because this is being watched in the afterlife, on that other plane of existence. Isn't that a weird concept? But when I was younger, I alluded to this yesterday on one of my, in one of my more crazier shows, I guess, because I get off on these rants sometimes, as if this isn't. But I was talking about, I mentioned in passing the Illuminati, and that whole idea. It's way up there. I got everything all over the place. Pardon me. Well, if you get into some of the ancient, the ancient society studies and stuff, a lot of that leads to things that like freaks the average person out. So it's like when they don't know about something, then it's suddenly a conspiracy theory, right? And the thing is, it's because they're frightened, is what it is.
The only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
When people are afraid of something or feel insecure, intimidated, that side of thing, their knee-jerk reaction a lot of times is it's either this cognitive dissonance, which is kind of a big overused word, but it encompasses a lot of things. And one of those things is that they're in denial, or they criticize it, they project, or the classic conspiracy theory, tinfoil hat, woo woo, all these things. It gets boring after a while to hear this kind of stuff. I mean, you either accept something or you don't. You're either interested or you're not. It's like when you watch a movie or a play or something. The whole concept is to suspend disbelief. People who are in the theater or entertainment business understand that, the suspension of disbelief. Because the whole reason you bought that ticket and you walked into that and sat in that chair is that you're in there for the performance, for, you know, whatever's going to be presented to you. So you're suspending disbelief. And at the very, very least, you should suspend disbelief during the length of, you know, the discussion. Now, on a more serious level, if it's a scientific discussion, if, you know, in a, you know, in say a classroom or a seminar type, uh, you know, this almost the same thing applies. In other words, hear the man out. You obviously made a decision. You saw a thing, a flyer, or some sort of promotional thing, or a guy like me told you about, hey, check Cyrus, Cyrus's Afterlife Topics and Metaphysics a channel out. You know, check his videos, check a couple of his videos out. And so you go there. And so the idea is the whole if that enticed you, then the whole idea is suspend disbelief. You see? Don't just like, you know, these people just, you know, yeah, because you're a free person. You can do whatever you want to. But the idea is, remember, as in this existence that we're in right now, you know, you have these 5 senses, right? You know, which happens to coincide with 5 fingers. But so that was the gas inside a 2-liter bottle. And there's a scientific explanation for what happened there. So all that said, which is a weird expression, or that said, you know, that's something that rose in the past 10 years, decade or so. That said, I hate that. I don't really hate. You shouldn't hate anything. You shouldn't slurp. I'm drinking, like I showed you, it's cold, you know, part caffeinated, part non-caffeinated. But it's like if you're tasting a wine or something fine, to savor that flavor, so to speak, or to just get that flavor, especially as you get a little bit older. You know, when you're a kid, you know, taste is, you know, you've got the full, all those taste buds, you know, activated, you know. But, you know, then there's some, I forget, I remember hearing something about it, but, you know, things changed the way, you know, there are certain taste buds or certain things that are more activated, or certain tastes that you're more, you know, you tend to, are more enhanced than others, say, or whatever. And the idea of like slurping, you know, kind of gets that to roll over, you know. So it might be a turnoff to somebody, you know. I'm not sitting here with a suit and tie. Hell, I'm wearing my own shirt. The face. Now you look at that and you go like, is that the same guy smoking a cigarette? You know, well, yeah, without the glasses and the goofy hat, it's me. But when you do that, you get more of the flavor. So it's Tony Caravan live show. Deal with it, man. So everything you know is wrong, in effect. And the other idea back here, behind that thing that you can get, everyone should have one of these, by the way. Great solar stuff. Read the description. I'm tired of demonstrating it. Everything they say and more is true about this device. Same goes for this other device back there. But you don't know, on this shirt, you don't know what you don't know. And that's what we're going to focus on today. Let's say we'll put that over there. Doesn't fall off. All the stuff I have, right? I've got all of these shirts and, you know, the mugs. I ordered a, you know, the travel mug version of this too. Hey, if you guys don't get the stuff, I'm going to get it. Like I said, everything I have, I read my own books. I watch my own videos. I use all these devices and I wear all my own clothes, you know. I test everything out. If this wasn't a good, comfortable shirt, made of good material, these shirts I've got hanging up here, I've all worn. Some of them I've worn several times, and I'll wear several times again. I just have them on the set right now. But I've washed them, and they've, they wash well, wear well. They don't shrink or anything like that. And they remain comfortable. 7:09 Eastern Seaboard. Look at the beauty of this planet. So the idea that we're going to discuss here, or we are discussing already, is that, what are we? Who are we? I kind of opened it in a book. I think I even referred to Cyrus in that book. This is like, so this is almost like a paying. It's an interesting word. And you'll notice on one of my other things, occasionally I do this once a month or so. I'll do a paying to a website or something. I did a paying to a Asha Logos website because I thought the guy was like, into some really interesting stuff and whatever. And I even made a comment in his comments section, but he deleted my comment. So then I changed the title. I think the title of that video is a paying to someone who deleted my comment. But I don't really care. I didn't take the video down, and I don't have any ill feelings about it. It's like it's just somebody's head, and if Cyrus, is offended by this and decides to say, hey, that guy's a fruitcake, and drop me from his discussion group, that won't mean I'll stop watching his videos or anything like that. I understand, you do what you do. I share things with people that I find interesting, and someone just looks at me and just says, I don't know who that guy's weird. So I don't want to deal with him. So be it, So this afterlife topics being the inspiration or the point of departure for me, to take this show. Even though the title card, is totally something different. It's the cattle thing, right? For the umpteenth time, we're cattle on a tax and consumer farm, right? Get it jackhammered into your head. But that's all the same thing. It's like, it's no different than saying it's a prison planet. And people talk about being caught up in a reincarnation loop. There are some people that talk about the earth actually there's a field of energy around the planet and you can't escape it. And then there's those that, that are well beyond the idea of concepts of, of extraterrestrial life to the point of, they're in a whole, they've got the whole stories down, right? People still, there's, if you watch like mainstream, this is, I'm just going to get all over the place, but we're going to stay on topic. We've got plenty of time. It's going to be a long show as usual. But it's interesting, about some of these topics I talk about. A lot of the stuff I talk about, which, a lot of it has to do with the thing, the real world things, such as practicality, like why you can't have a major infrastructure project when simultaneously you're trying to eliminate carbon-based fuels. Like the two don't go together, because the former is going to require an increase in the usage of them, whereas that just the two don't jibe. All right. And yet absolutely no one, I scanned last night, YouTube, no one said what I said in my video yesterday, or the previous one, or in that video yesterday, the last link at the bottom of it that went to my previous one where I talked about it in more detail. And it's the same with this isn't about UFOs, but it's the same with the UFO concept. It's like,
The future. He came from the future. And so do I.
But you said that he wasn't human, that he was some other kind of being.
Another world and another time.
so, for some people, when they deal with science fiction or they deal with aliens or UFOs, they watch these news junkies. As everyone knows, I cut the cord. I don't watch television anymore. I don't have a television service because I get tired of watching used car salesmen. That's all they are. And and the Navy came out, what was it, last year, and they showed, and it made the nightly news, pictures of these unidentified flying objects, or they gave them a different name, and people watch this stuff, and then some announcer or somebody gives you some like kind of poll number. Of course, polls are absurd because unless you ask 100 million people, which they never ask even 1,000 barely. So all polls are not only below the margin of error, but they don't even approach the margin of error. So anyone believes any poll whatsoever, that there's allegedly a national or let alone worldwide poll is ridiculous. They know it didn't ask anybody in Africa or Asia or South America, right? Didn't ask the Inuit peoples. It's pretty comical in one regard, but it's kind of disgusting in the other, because so, but the people's response to this sort of thing, and I'm just mixing these two things together. I'm not sponsored by this. This is some like Walmart brand or one of those brands, unlike this thing, and this is just some specialty micro. Like you have a micro brew, it's a micro soda, soda place. 2-liter bottle costs like 69 cents or something like that. 89 cents or whatever. It tastes just the same as anything. I mean, that one tastes a little bit like pardon me, adjusting my socks, wearing shorts, even though it's 21 degrees outside. I don't even look at the nightmare of my garden. The snow, it's so cold. Yesterday, we got about an inch of snow yesterday. And it's so cold that the snow on some of the glass panes that I had over top of to protect like my radishes area, that I'm going to respond to somebody's email if you don't mind, just so they don't call and interrupt. Doing my live show right now. Talk later. It's Tony Caravan live. I mean, this show is live. I mean, it will, by the time you see it, it probably will be just recorded. But back to that. So how they deal with this. This is a slower moving show for some people. It usually takes a while to get started. It's there's that pop again. We ease into things here before we get into it, because this topic is like intense, and so it's going to take a while to ease into it. So people watch this stuff, the news junkie. Like I said, I always look up there when I talk about the media, because I used to have a TV on the wall up there. This is my control center here, which I really don't use anymore, but when I was heavy into doing projects and all that type of stuff. And this TV here, screen, I used to have on the wall. And so I can't help it. It's a habit. And I'll probably do it. Just keep doing it. So accept it. And you've heard me say that before, people who've seen this show before. Particularly the dead people. I see dead people, right? So, like with the UFO topic, all right, or whatever you want to call it, and the microphone, you're getting a little bit of a road rally out there, which happens on Fridays, more Fridays and Mondays more so than other things. There's no explanation for that. They're in a hurry to get to work so they can get out of work quick. I don't know. People talk about it, or they like, it goes in and then it, and then they just like this blank expression on their face. So what, whatever. Well, that's a big deal, and then, but then people within the, the ufologists, so to speak, the people who've been studying this stuff for their entire life, well, and who've gone through all of the books, right? And then there's even channeled material and stuff, and deal with. I watched a little bit of something last night. I don't have this Gaia thing, though. I've been thinking I might subscribe to that for a month or so to check it out. But sometimes you can catch these Gaia videos, GAIA. And there seems to be like some pretty interesting stuff. And they were talking about like this Urantia book, which I've heard of, and I think I have a copy of it somewhere. I could even check that right now just to see, because they mentioned that last night, and I should have looked at it before this morning. And it's such a weird spelling that it should come up if I have it. I'm using Apple Mac computers, and it's kind of weird. For a second, I did this, and the word Adam and Eve came up. And, that's part of that whole thing. It was really freaky. I'm going to try this again. Sorry for this. That's very, very, very strange. It's like I got no results, but before it went blank, there was like Adam and Eve and some other stuff like that. And in this discussion last night, on this Gaia thing about this Urantia, Urant, was about the real Adam and Eve kind of thing. Not to be confused with the Adam and Eve story, by that Chan guy, or the biblical story, right? But this is a whole different thing that has to do with, off-world genetics and some 500,000 people that were our genetics were to be altered by this, something to do with the galactic force, and that was to change, the course of human history, in a sense of to change our genome or and something along that line. Real interesting stuff. And these people sit there and they talk it, and they've researched this, and they, and it's compelling information. I mean, some people won't, they can't like accept that. And it's just like the same as the national news or the Navy says, oh yeah, we've been following these UFOs for decades. Or you get those CIA documents that come out, declassified documents. You go to CIA.gov. If you have any idea, any way of knowledge of how to search, through these kinds of archival things, they talk about all that stuff. Half the so-called woo-woo, tinfoil hat conspiracy theory stuff is documented. That's the thing. It's like the people who criticize things, they criticize the wrong things, because those things are pretty well documented. and have, a lot of people, and a lot of evidence to support it. The funny thing is, it's the things that, they don't necessarily even know about. Like, you don't know what you don't know, that, they well, that's what we're going to get into. So life is a lot stranger than, than the average person thinks that it is. And I started out mentioning about secret societies. And so my connection with all of this metaphysical side, and the astral projection side, is when I was younger, I was a student, you could call it that, of a particular order that, would preserve knowledge of ancient knowledge, and, and pass that down. And I don't want to get into all that stuff, because it's like, I'm not into messing with their, I no longer do that right now. I've been thinking about getting into it. I have my books, my pamphlets, the information, and it's something that I think this year, maybe this summer, when the weather gets back in my garage slash, I wouldn't really call it man cave, because it's not really that, but it's like my workshop and whatever. I don't have a car. So it's like, it's the place I do organize my gardening, my, repair things, and just stuff like that. And we're talking just like fixing little goofy things. But it's a space I have set up there, and I have a little counter. I have a workbench type of thing, man. I makeshift workshop, a thing I built, and I also have like a little bar counter type of thing. Once or twice I've, had a person over or something, and we had some drinks out there. I've got music set up there because I spend time I spend a lot of time in the summer. About at least 7 months out of the year, I spend outside in my yard. And when I'm not, tending my garden, so to speak, I'm pretty much on the lounge chair, situated in between my two outdoor speakers, just soaking up the sun, the vitamin D, and all that stuff. Just eyes closed, and, it's almost kind of meditational thing, but just enjoying human existence, enjoying the five senses, which is what life's all about. This life is all about, it's experiential. I mean, that's life. We're experiential. And excuse me. So the average person, this discussion isn't for the average person, because just the same way as they don't see a correlation between going into a theater and suspending disbelief and giving, though they do that, right? They go see Star Wars and, or Spider-Man 25, right? How many Spider-Man movies have they made? It's ridiculous. It's like ridiculous. And they've gotten progressively worse, right? Have you noticed that? And the characters in these, like I say, I'm a fan of comic book heroes, in a sense. And there have been some pretty good ones. But have you noticed that the characters either have gotten more and more wimpier and wimpier and wimpier? And then they have to put all this like weird stuff in there, like to turn it to agree with, make it social justice-y, political, incorrect, which what I'd say, because it's just so absurd. So, but I don't want to talk about that. But people go and see these things, and they're like, they're in there, and they spend 2 hours watching it, and they come out of the theater, and that's that. It's like, you either come out of the theater out of watching an old James Bond movie, coming out feeling like you're James Bond, or or you just turn it off and you go do your thing. But when they watch the news and someone says, hey, there's the Navy's been tracking these spacecraft for decades now. And so and people just like, it just goes in the ear, in the eye, and then like they ignore it. They don't want to deal with that. But then if I say it, or if they, someone else says it, or they see it somewhere, on the History Channel or on YouTube, then they're like, oh, that's woo-woo, weird, wah, whatever. Well, and so the thing is, they're so far behind, like where people like me are, and the people that have been studying this stuff for, I don't know, 60 years, 70 years, right? I mean, there are people who've lived their whole life and, written books, and there's all these volumes of work available from them. They're no longer even alive, that have dedicated their lives to these studies of these phenomenon and what have you, and the average person isn't even aware of it. And when you put that vast, voluminous amount of information, acquired information over, like I say, over decades, if not, well, technically centuries, if you get into the ancient studies, it far outweighs the amount of information that the average person gets through the standard school system. And that would be from like kindergarten through to getting a PhD. There's that much other knowledge out there, and that much other documentation. And remember, just like the Big Bang theory is a theory, just like Einstein's theory of relativity is a theory, just like Darwin's theory, right, is a theory. This other, this whole other, school of thought is not even given the time of day, because none of these other things have been proven anymore. In fact, in many ways, some of this other stuff there's more evidence supporting the metaphysical, and certainly more written about it over thousands of years, because modern history is like a couple of hundred years, really. Several centuries. And that's, so that's a good point of departure, is looking at it that way. So, people have things called NDEs, near-death experiences, and you can look that up, and you can find thousands, and out-of-body experiences, NDE, so, and these range from anything from someone on an operating table, where they die in an emergency room or on an operating table, to someone who's, had an accident, and maybe before the EMTs come, there's all sorts of backgrounds on how these things come, how these things have come about with people. And the vast majority of them, the vast majority of these things are very compelling stories by very rational, intelligent people, ranging from doctors, other professionals and what have you. And, they tell these compelling stories, and, and they've been life-changing experiences in many cases. And that's one of those other areas you don't know what you don't know, because, by the average person, and me even saying this now, that's woo woo, which I hate that expression, but I'm saying it because, I got a response, I think. So, there's Tony Caravan Live. It's my life. Remember, part of this show, unlike other shows you see on YouTube, and maybe that's one of the reasons why it's more popular with dead people than it is with the living, is that it's my life. And, life, this is reality. So, there's no games being played here. So welcome to my world, put it that way. And so, this isn't just like walk down the tunnel, these people like have this experience and it's like, oh, we're going to go walk through the tunnel. There's a tunnel at the end of the thing, or I saw Jesus, or something like that. It's if those of us who've like listened to these things, have, understand that it's far deeper than, the stories that have kind of seeped out into the so-called mainstream, which are usually the how the average person would judge this as something to be fringe, right? But the fact of the matter is that there's something going on here. And just like in my book where I talk about the problem of hard consciousness, in other words, anyone who studies like a neuroscientist, all right, somebody who studies the brain, right now they'll tell you that they have no idea where consciousness comes from. I mean, seriously, no serious scientist right now is going to tell you that there are people out there say, oh, consciousness rises, the brain gives a rise to consciousness. Well, that's just a statement by some individual, but it's not the stance of modern, science. When people talk about the bioelectric brain, that's not, the current view of those who seriously study this is that they call it the hard problem of consciousness. It was coined by a guy named Chalmers, who I give credit to in my book. And it's the idea is that they have no idea what consciousness is. The idea that you view the world subjectively in the first person, the you, who you are. Meaning that consciousness, as far as science is concerned, is independent of the human brain or this android body, whatever the heck it is, this intelligently designed thing. And a guy like me who's gone through several operations and dealt with surgeons, this this is a biological machine. And ask a good surgeon how they look at the human body. These things are created pretty interesting, But so you have this consciousness that exists, the you. Now, I personally, and this is just my conjecture, this is just my own opinion. I don't believe, some people call consciousness your soul. Okay. I mean, we're all talking the same thing here. Consciousness, the soul, right? What, and so the idea is I have, some people I have a song out, like there's a line in there, the soulless millions. I think it's Robots. It's one of my beat poetry tracks. Check it out. Listen to the lyrics of it. And, the soulless millions, I think, is the line in there, wandering the streets or something, doing as they're told. And it's kind of like, this art imitates life or life imitates art type of thing, whatever. It's like all these shows like The Walking Dead and things, to me, and I'm not I watched that stuff once or twice years ago when it first came out, but I'm not into that kind of stuff. I'm not a big horror fan, though I occasionally might watch something weird like that. I more or less like look at the subtext of the author and what they're trying to get across, and whether or not they're trying to get that across or not. That's my takeaway is that, it's kind of just a way analogy of the real world. So you have these people, these soulless people just wandering, right? They're just physical forms. And you encounter them. And some people call them NPCs, like in the gaming world, the non-player characters. So they respond, they are the mechanical machine, like I say, the biological unit, right? But they don't have this, consciousness. They're not conscious. They're not a you. They don't have, they're, and in the religious context, they have no soul, so to speak. And so, that is when you talk about the NDE or the OBE, out of body experience, and then, and then astral projection, which I was trying to say when I was involved in these studies many years ago, like over 30 years ago, I was able to astral project. And not only astral project, but with using the procedures in the group that I was dealing with, okay, was able to, and this has become very vague to me, and I don't know, like I say, there's more to this world than people really understand, and I don't know how to get that through your head. It's like the thing I have for the umpteenth time about we're cattle on a tax and consumer farm, which is more almost seems to be a kind of a political statement or ideological statement or a down-to-earth concrete statement, whereas this is metaphysics, graduate metaphysics is what I'm this discussion. But the mindset, the way people accept this is similar. So when I stopped, my life changed. I stopped those studies. All right. And I have not been able to astral project personally in 30 some years. But when I did astral project and successfully was able to do that, to have my out of body experience, I actually had a group experience confirmed by others who were astral projecting at the same time. But we weren't even from different parts of the world. Not that far out. But it's real. Really happened. And then there was communication. So verifications, communications, that type of thing. So how do you explain that? Right? It's one thing for me to say, oh, I astral project, or to watch Cyrus's videos and have him talk about, some of his experiences, which I recommend you do. But how do you explain, that? And and probably one of the first things I'll mention in his discussion group, which I just got involved with, is I might bring this up. Maybe I'll do that today if I remember. I'm going all over the place, and I have so many things I do, so many thoughts in my head. It's crazy. But is the idea, has he ever confirmed something, not just with someone on the so-called other side, and we'll get into that in a second, but have had joint experiences with another or several others, simultaneously projecting themselves. So this is far out stuff, and I realize that if someone following my hundreds of videos or whatever, would be totally taken aback, and the concept of this iconic figure of me, a couple 20 years ago or something, is like, it's hard for the average person to take. But black cherry, this isn't the greatest, but black cherry is my thing. I used to live in New Jersey many, many years ago, and they still have it, I'm sure. There's a chain called Rite Aid, or not Rite Aid, Shop Right. I'm sorry. Shop. I worked for Rite Aid as a kid. I used to be when I was 16 years old. I used to stock the shelves. But ShopRite used to have a ShopRite brand 2-liter bottle of some kind of black cherry diet cola. And somehow the flavor, and that was like 88 cents, it was less than $1, probably still is, but it's still around. That was the best flavor, you say, well, why do you get on that tangent? Because, of the experiential thing, so you go to the other side, are you going to be able to taste black cherry soda? If you have some kind of religious belief and you go to heaven, do you think you're going to be just an orb of light? I mean, when you're not going to be living in a cloud, because anybody who's been in an airplane, you've been above clouds. I mean, there's still people that still don't even get that through their head. They think, oh, you're gonna, have the hell I even call that thing. It's like I block it out of my mind. The rapture, right? That make-believe thing that they made up, right? It was just made up 100 less than 200 years ago or something, some odd interpretation by somebody. And suddenly, there's a whole movement and a series of books and guys who became multimillionaires because of it. Of course, it never happened. They were all pushing it happening by, the end of the 20th century or something like that. I love how these people who make all these, it's like the Seventh-day Adventist or something. They kept pushing the date back, But, I don't criticize anybody's religious beliefs, though that may have seemed like a criticism. I don't mean to criticize your thing, because we really don't know it's like you don't know what you don't know. And, and there is this whole idea, reuse the word school of thought, that the afterlife is what you believe it to be, if you are that much caught up in a belief system. So you tend to, that is your what you get, in a sense. Now that could be, this could get into a heavy topic, side topic of dreams, because there are some people that, excuse me, I was always told to cover your mouth when you cough or clear your throat or something like that. Basic hygiene. So, there's the difference between dreams, even those who can lucid dreamers, those who are aware that they're dreaming, and then suddenly, will participate in that dream themselves. That's lucid dreaming, and they could take that dream to wherever they want. And and that's a very interesting concept, and that's not what we're talking about when we talk about astral projection, and not, or like I was trying to apply, the afterlife, in a sense of your afterlife being what you believe the afterlife to be. And so that, upon dying, ending this existence, then you become, you are living in the clouds with, and like I said, I'm not making fun of somebody, but, with people with harps and a man with beard, a big white beard welcoming you. It's quite possible you could be caught in some kind of loop like that. You don't know what you don't know. And, there are certain percentages of NDE, OBEs that do have, these similar stories of a light in a tunnel and this kind of thing. And, but the question is that because of the influence of their upbringing, religious upbringing, or exposure to some pop cultural thing, right? Or having heard, or, sometimes we hear things or in passing and and so that becomes part of our subconscious. And I talked about the subconscious, several shows ago, and how the subconscious is like our worst enemy, because it's all about being conscious, not allow. Subconscious is the way that everything that's bad, in existence gets into your head. Those who would, who want to manipulate you, that's indoctrinate you, propaganda, all of that sort of stuff that enters the subconscious. And it'd be an interesting discussion to talk to, when you talk about the hard problem of consciousness, is that, is it possible, and quite possible, that the subconscious shouldn't be called the subconscious at all? Because perhaps what the subconscious is actually part of your bioelectric brain, is the thing that is created by your bioelectric brain, and your subconscious, so to speak, is in conflict with your consciousness. And it may be a bridge to your, this physical form. And that's why it's such a dangerous thing. All right. So that people would be walking around these NPCs, non-player characters, the Walking Dead, so to speak, that they have a subconscious, not consciousness or soul, as you could say. So you astral project, and in my experience with astral projection, again, I have to get back into these studies because I've been out of it for 30 years. But when I watch, people like Cyrus, who I've been talking about, talk about it, I know I know what they're talking about is real. And when people talk about near death experiences and things like that, I understand it. And I understand the concept of, degrees of dreams and things of that sort. But the idea that, those who are into this thing seriously right now, you know, the current mainstream belief, by the more serious people in this, I wouldn't call it a movement, but, who are actively involved in discussions and books and everything. There's this idea of this alternative earth or the place you go. All right. So you astral project, and the idea that your consciousness, the you know, who you are, like I say, what Western religion belief systems would call the soul, say, particularly maybe Christianity, the soul is something that exists in is multidimensional. All right. And, and then there are those that also, that have this idea of the one, right? Whereas if, God consciousness is just one, right? And somehow we're all part of this one huge consciousness. And that eventually we work ourselves back into this, inconceivable, eternal consciousness. Yeah. But that's like, that's a multi-step process. And, almost was going to say, and something that would be, might take billions of years to reach. But then again, there is no time. The whole idea of, that's why I was talking before about relativity. Einstein's, I don't buy into what Einstein referred to as space-time, being merged together. Just like I don't believe in dark matter, dark energy. Those are just things. And it's becoming more and more evident that those things don't even exist. It's more like we live in a more of an electric universe. So it's electrics and electromagnetics and things of that nature, which happen to coincide with the way we've originally developed memory. Artificial memory was through magnetic tape, that kind of thing. So, like I say, and this is a very expansive topic, and you can go in all kinds of directions, but I try to hold it within some kind of level here. So let's take the concept of astral projection to specifically to, this Earth 2, or to the afterlife existence. So where you exist, right? In, like as in another thing, if you accept modern science, this idea of a multiverse, and there may be, whatever the current number is that they, that those who are into this particular physics, they talk about so many multiverses, not necessarily infinite. They talk like maybe a dozen. All right. But, don't hold me on that specific number. And so you may exist simultaneously in a dozen multiverses. And when I say you, I mean your consciousness, your whole consciousness. And that consciousness may also exist simultaneously in the God consciousness or with the one. All right. And everything is a part of everything, and you don't know what you don't know. So don't try to, have a brain aneurysm trying to get wrap yourself around that. Okay. And so when a person astral projects to the next level, there are those that talk about not so much as a multiverse, right? But they talk about dimensions, or they'll use the word density. And there's this thought that, particularly this in UFO or ufology, however, whatever you want to call it, that, the idea of UFOs are beings that are entering our density. And when they enter this density, this frequency, then they become visible. But otherwise, they would be invisible because they would be functioning or existing at a vibration that's beyond our ability. And the same would be the reason why certain animals can see things that we can't see. Certain animals could see like infrared, or can see this, naturally see in the dark, or hear, dog can hear something that's inaudible to us. So in that same way, if something's vibrating at a certain frequency, pardon me, mustaches are a pain, but I've had a mustache my whole life, so it's part of my personality. Sometimes I think that scares people away because some people have a problem. I mean, the beard has been accepted as the full beard has been accepted as kind of a hipster type of thing. But like when you have mostly just a mustache, I mean, that's like, I don't know, some throwback to the 70s or something. You got a problem with my face? That's your problem, not mine. Anyway, so, this is pretty heavy stuff, but, if you're following what I'm saying, and sorry to go down those little side tangents, but, it is what it is. So we know that through studies so far, I mean, like I say, everything is wrong pretty much because, or you don't know what you don't know, or the idea is that unless you've experienced a thing firsthand, you don't know for sure, what a thing is. All our knowledge comes to us from childhood on up, mostly, until we realize this experiential existence, our five senses, and we start taking ourselves seriously, the inputted data that's coming into us and interpreting, and how that's basically channeled through into our consciousness. That's your true awakening. That's when you start to become, a higher being, is when you put that together, the correlation between, and you understand the purpose of your existence, all right, is experience. I mean, that's what this is. And going to another plane of existence, all right, naturally follows what I just said. And so modern science, so to speak, looks at, what particularly like particle physics, physics of the small as opposed to physics of the large, of the greater universe, sees things as waves and vibrations. Okay. And so that everything is kind of vibrating. It's that whole idea that, what seems to be solid really isn't solid. It's these vibrating, subatomic particles. And, that basically if you were able to have your hand vibrate at the exact same levels, could pass it through a solid object. And also along those lines is perception, is like what they call the slit theory, where the, if the, when there's a different result, if it's viewed, by a person or even a camera, then when there is no one observing the action, which brings the question, what is reality, right? And the whole idea of the tree falling in the forest, if no one's there to hear it, is there a sound? That kind of idea. So let's take this, so you've got this vast amount of documentation and anecdotal stories of NDEs and OBEs and people who astral project, right? And then you have a guy like Cyrus and some other people that he refers to. There's another guy, and I think I even mentioned him in my book. If I could get to it without taking up too much of your time. Let me just do this without doing too many ums. It's worth, this guy's worth giving credit to as well. Jürgen, his last name's Ziewe, Jürgen Ziewe or something. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, but the guy is Jürgen, probably would be pronounced Jürgen in his foreign tongue. And, and there's these other people who, that I refer to, like that's my book, Tony Caravan Codex. It's more of a thing that opens up your mind to questioning these things as opposed to me trying to give you the answers. And that's the first step. If you're intrigued by any of this kind of thought, that's the kind of thing you want to do. You want to watch like one of Cyrus's videos, or as many as you want. He's written books on it, or you want to get my book to get your mind just questioning this stuff. And that's what this video is. As I say, this is a departure from a lot of the stuff I've done. I just wanted to do something different, close out this week. This week has been a very interesting week, and in as far as my video is concerned, because they've been all over the place. But I did talk about subconsciousness and some other things that that I felt I thought I would end this way. And I don't want to, like I say, I'm not a political person. I have had political feelings in the past. I've been strong with ideologies and things like that over the years, but it's like, as far as I'm concerned, I'm not, those days are gone. They're not coming back. It's over. Forget it. I'm not going there anymore. That's not to say that I won't comment on the world, current events, and things that affect our lives and this existence, this experiential thing that we have while we are occupying these, bodies. The morning show will continue. So okay, everything is a vibration. Things that particles vibrate. There are various densities. Some people call these, see different dimensions, right? And then there are this multiverse idea. And I don't know if there's any unified theory that is brought together, the densities, vibrations, dimensions, and the multiverse, together, and those are future areas of discussion, contemplation, I should say, because that's what a discussion is. We're just contemplating ideas here. This isn't, I'm not, it's remember, this is part of the purpose of life. People like get puzzled. What's the meaning of life? Well, the meaning of life is you've got 5 senses, and it's to experience, this existence. So, part of that is this, if I slurp, well, actually, this is like sickly sweet, though. There's sugar cane in there, and to be honest with you, it's a little too sweet for my taste. But it's the idea of that, taste experience. Obviously the senses, making love, feeling things, seeing beauty, right? Hearing nature or music, right? The whole overall, holistic experience of life and the experience of it. So, the search for truth and beauty and using your human brain, which does exist. See, the idea of understanding the difference between the brain and consciousness. So you do have this processing unit here, this bioelectric brain that's tied into this, experience machine, right? And your consciousness is being fed that data, or your consciousness is using this thing, all right, for its own purposes. We don't know. Who can say? We could postulate. There's a thought experiments. Some people call this stuff a LARP, a live action role playing game. Though that's kind of, I used that the other day. I was talking about that because I was talking about some weird things, but it was nothing like this. I don't know if I really like that phrase, live action role playing game. So let's go to this planet, the next planet, so-called Earth 2, like they would say in maybe a comic book, DC comic. They dealt with that in some of their series, where the Earth Crisis, and somehow the multiverses all collapsed into one or whatever. I mean, it was fantasy, but the original, when they were originally into it, it was kind of interesting, but I kind of didn't. I think when they collapsed into one or something like that, that was just a little bit too far out. But then again, these are just stories. This is just, that's just science fiction. So let's, for the sake of it, say you astral project or you die, and you are now on, instead of being floating on some kind of cloud with harps and a guy with a big beard, right? You're almost unaware that you died, because you just have joined your other consciousness. In other words, your consciousness is expansive. So you're not only part of the so-called oneness of consciousness that is all there is. I mean, a quick break there for a second is that what is puzzling when we talk about multiverse and the universe. We have this vast, expansive thing called the universe, and then physicists talking about a multiverse, astrophysicists, people, multiverse. It's like, well, what's that all about? And then, there are these computer models, that like take back the idea of looking at the entire universe, so to speak. And when it looks at it, it looks like it's a neural network. So is the universe conscious? And is that one, right? Is that the one of the ones? And so then there would be multiverses, right? And then what goes beyond that? Who knows, right? But we can't get into that. So, but that is a puzzling part of this, is that when you're talking about, and it, or is this Earth 2? I'm just calling it Earth 2. Is this idea that I astral project to this other Earth, or I die and it seems like I'm on an Earth type planet that's the same as this? Is that, have I been transported to another location within this universe? Am I now functioning at a frequency, a level, so that it's a different density, right? Or it's a dimension that may be simultaneously existing, right? We could all be existing on the same plane, so to speak, but just vibrating at different levels. That kind of thing. And it brings in the whole idea that then you've got the ufologists, right? And then you have these various religious people that talk about reincarnation. And then you have other people that talk about soul traps and nefarious forces that, may be trapping us here. And then all, the vast, like the voluminous myths that have, like I say, there seems to be more written down in myth than there is in hard science, right? And there's so much data in there and so much stuff, and it's all interconnected and seems to make sense sometimes, that it, it boggles the mind, really. And so someone like me, so you end up going down the rabbit hole by watching one of these Gaia shows, say, for example. So, like I said, I'm not here today, saying I have the answers to any of this. In my book wasn't presented to, say this is the way it is. But the idea is that we have to accept the reality that throughout millennia, people have been writing about all of these sorts of things and having these sorts of experiences. And, while there are people out there that are just are frauds trying to make a buck, almost like not, in other words, like a pulp science fiction writer, as opposed to a serious science fiction writer. It's just like someone calls somebody in a news media, a hack, as opposed to a journalist or something. I mean, there's all kinds of disinformation out there, just like there's information out there. But when you look at it in the, in the aggregate, there's more information that points that some of the things that I've been discussing today are, are closer to the truth of, of what, of what this whole thing is, whatever it is. And I don't subscribe to the simulation theory, the computer thing, like the transhumanist idea or any of that nonsense. That's like a cop out. That's primitive. That's the whole idea that some kind of mechanical device, a computing device, a chip, or even if you're dealing with some sort of like, some people are talking now about like genetic or types of computing. Look, we have one of the greatest processors that exists right here. And people can't even figure it out. When you talk about, the fact that we know that there was an Einstein, that there was a Da Vinci, that you have these savants, people with photographic memories, right? And that type of stuff that go beyond the human brain, is beyond beyond functioning computers that we have today in capabilities. Because remember, the important thing to keep within this whole discussion is that when I talk about life is experiential, right? And the connection between the spirit, the soul, the consciousness, the you, with, this biological, bioelectric brain, what have you, that, there's still this idea that, I'm almost losing my trend of thought, because I'm going so many different directions here. That your experience of life is more than this, is the sum total of all of those things. Okay. And that out of that is, and I've got my thought back, is creativity, which people don't necessarily talk about. And so the question is, one of my personal proofs that I believe in is a proof of consciousness is creativity. And I don't necessarily mean creativity in the sense of, being a painter, okay? Though that is creativity. But I mean is the idea of that, the proof of this spirit, consciousness, soul, what have you, is that seems to be, and I point up here because, it's all around us. It's throughout us. It's within you and without you, like that George Harrison song or something like that. It's the thing, creativity is the thing that combines, takes in all this data, all this experience, and somehow expresses it, right? Utilizes it, right? Whereas those without consciousness, so to speak, the NPCs, they don't seem to have any creativity whatsoever. And that's why they're like the Walking Dead. And so to me, creativity is proof that consciousness, that there's more to the human animal than what meets the eye. And that's what makes us, that is who we are, is through creativity. Our ability to, and our search for truth and beauty, and the ability to see the ocean, hear the waves, smell the surf, have your bare feet walk along the sand, right? have the full sensory experience of the world we live in, right? That would be the purpose of us. So why are we even here if we're part of this, one, because this guy Spear, whatever his name is, I refer to him in my book too, that, and some of the ancient beliefs, these people that believe in just oneness. And the idea is our whole goal is to just get back to this oneness. And you say, well, that's pretty boring, right? It's like floating around as an orb of light. Well, who the heck wants to do that? Right? And you say, well, yeah, but it's your mind to be blown. Well, you won't have a mind. You're an orb of light. You're just going to be conscious, but you'll have total awareness. And it'll be, whatever. Maybe you'll be a star. Maybe we're stars, right? And so, and the line of thought is then that's what people make the choice that suddenly that becomes boring. So you choose to send your soul here, lose memory of your other consciousness that's part of that one. And I wrote a song once called 2 Hours, and the idea that this whole thing is an amusement ride, right? Life is an amusement ride. Think of that bizarre concept. It's a song called 2 Hours. The lyrics are better than necessary, because my stuff's beat poetry. Let me see if I could dig this up. I don't want to run this show too much longer, but I'm just going to try to get this to you. Writings. See if I can have it. 2 Hours. I hope it's in here. Music. Forgive me for having to do this. I know it's in here. 2 Hours. 2 Hours text. Okay. So I'm just going to read you a little bit of this for a sec. There are numerous ancient references to one day being like 1,000 years for the gods, small g. And though that's hard to fathom for most, it's somewhat plausible in a multiverse quantum space-time relativity sort of way. Now, if that day is divided in half, it's 500 years. And in tenths, it's 100 years, or a healthy lifespan. That 100 years translates into a little over 2 hours, or the length of a long movie or show. So I put it to you that our lives are nothing more than a drama that we may well choose to experience. The rules are simple. You will become the character you play and have no memory of the entity that you truly are until the spectacle is over. Life is a fleeting dreamscape that is merely a blink of the cosmic eye. Reality is nothing more than perception. So the question remains, why would we choose this arduous amusement ride in the first place? Or perhaps it wasn't really our choice. What have we learned through the experience, and how will the actions we have taken and the choices we have made affect the rest of our eternal existence? For some reason on that one, I put be kind, rewind. But that's pretty heavy. And you can find that. If you look 2 Hours, Tony Caravan, Rock Flux channel, it's probably up there somewhere. You can listen for free. It's probably listen to it on Spotify. But, that's just a far out idea. Okay. But it's also kind of creepy in a sense that, and there are biblical references to the idea, and God, to God, 1,000 years is like an hour or something like that, and that's in other books too. And, you start looking at that and saying, So we think that, we're on this earth and this long life, and we have the struggles and all this hardship and all this crazy stuff. But, what if it's just what if we just chose to do this and it's just an amusement ride, and we're in this one, Now, I'm not saying I believe that, like I say, these are just thought experiments. This is just, we're pondering these ideas. Who knows? What, you don't know. But through astral projection, perhaps, some of these answers, are possible. But ultimately my idea would be you would almost have to astral project. Like, here's something for a guy like Cyrus, if you're watching this. The thing is to imagine the next time you astral project to, like, say, Earth 2 or whatever you want to call it. Then my idea would be, okay, lay down in bed or wherever, or however you get into the state to astral project, and see if you can astral project to the next level, right? Earth 3 or something different. That's interesting. That would be an interesting idea. But again, it's all experiential, and so, and it's the perception. And so, and that's what I try to say to people, and like life, I had cancer surgery, weird operations. I had a bad year, 2019. Well, I mean, I was in and out of the hospital, like, but the thing about it was, it wasn't really that bad a year. Somehow I kept my mind and head together about it all. And I don't know. It's like, maybe it's because I experience life, like I see life as this experience, the purpose of life. And I've always appreciated the beauty of nature, like looking at this. I don't know what that thing is. Like, let's see if I can get my finger to point to it. Like I say, my camera is showing this backwards. It looks like some kind of like circular thing or something there. I don't know what that is. I've never seen that before. I don't know what that now. Oh wait. Now it's moving. I don't know what it is. It must be a shadow of something. Or maybe it's something here that's like I say, this is the second most popular show among dead people. Yeah, the thing moved. But I didn't move. I'm not moving anything. It's not my head and it's not my hand. Welcome. Welcome to the morning show, whoever you are, whatever you are, right?
Good morning.
So, did that blow your mind? Sickly sweet. Just too much. People are into that cane sugar stuff. I just say to heck with it. There's supposedly this xylitol. I use xylitol toothpaste. And they put xylitol in this Mentos gum. And there's this anecdotal evidence. And, like I say, I'm not trying to sell this or tell you to do this or don't do this. But that xylitol is like one of those sugar substitutes that has a side effect of like filling in cavities or something like that, repairing cavities. I don't know if that's true or false, but I've been using it because I've lost fillings. I've done this before. I've shown these things. See if I can get you can see that. See that? It's like a filling came out of my mouth. I have a couple of them. Pretty scary. Yeah. If I eat a lot of sugar, my mouth. But, with this whole plague thing, getting to a dentist is virtually impossible. I had to go to a dentist last year, I had a tooth removed actually over here. I wanted to get it just filled or fixed or something, but every dentist I called was like, we're not taking new customers, because everyone was still in that like total fear of anything. So I finally, the only place I could go to was an oral surgeon. They made me get a test in order to even go there. So I had to go get a test. I tested negative, and then I went there and they yanked the tooth, and I was fine. But crazy times. It's like the theme of yesterday's show, and the card was it's a horror show. But that was about something else. I realized the card for this particular show is like kind of wrong. The idea is for the umpteenth time we're cattle on a tax farm, consumer farm. But in many ways, I'll try to justify that as I end here in saying that, it's so the way people take things so seriously, and they don't accept the idea that we live in a corporatocracy and there are people, puppeteers pulling strings, excuse me, of everything, and that the whole world is being manipulated by the powers that be. And who knows whether those powers that be are tied into some kind of negative forces or something, whether or not this actually is a prison planet or not. Excuse me. Keep myself from sneezing. It's more of what we don't know. Like I say, you don't know what you don't know. And, I don't know how many people are going to want to wear, the classic shirt, everything you know is wrong, like the one I have on now. But, the shirt, you don't know what you don't know, or everything you know is wrong, certainly are ones to get people riled up. And then, of course, there's this one, too. Then what? And that's my answer to all these, because I believe protesting and all that stuff is an exercise in futility. And so I always say, then what? When someone gets so crazed about some kind of ideological political thing, and I want this, and they've got their sign and they're out there, and I'm like, yeah, so what? Then what? It's like, it's like yesterday's show, which is, where I dealt with this whole, the dilemma of trying to, how you can't have a major infrastructure project at the same time that you eliminate carbon-based fuels, because the machinery, heavy equipment that does the function of rebuilding the infrastructure requires carbon-based fuels, doesn't run on batteries. And it's like, am I the only person on the internet, only person in the country, only person? I didn't see any, or media, anybody, whoever, who that even dawned on, So it's a horror show, we're going through now. I want to know, was this thing a bioweapon, or was it, or was it random? I've been getting the thing, get the shot, my one doctor thing through the thing. It's like, so if they call me, I've got it through my medical email, whatever, online chart type of thing. Notification, you should schedule a shot. But I figure eventually they'll call me or something. And when they call me, that's what I'm going to tell them. I'm saying, if you tell me that this is some bioweapon, I'll be first in line to get the shot, because obviously this is created and it's, whatever. But if you're telling me it's just a novel flu or something like that, well, I've never gotten flu shots. I don't get the flu. I don't get the colds. I did years ago, but I eat healthy and blah, blah, blah. That's just me. And I'm not giving any advice to anybody. Do whatever your doctor tells you to do. That's important. I have called my doctor and discussed thing whenever I've been sick, excuse me, with them. And you should always talk to medical professionals. My chair just slid down. So anyway, that's about it. It's an interesting, I thought that was an interesting discussion. And, that's what life's about, think about things. And unlike in previous videos, you could see I started this one later. It's now 8:38 to be exact. So the light's coming in through the window on this side, and I've got my little light on that side, and you're getting to see a little bit of my background, the original Mac computer, the poster from Mulder's office on the X-Files, and my little great solar stuff. So if you go down, if you click on this video, this is available on all kinds of social media platforms. I posted it. But if you click on it, I guess it takes you to the actual YouTube video. So if you're on YouTube, there's a description below and it says show more. And if you go show more, there'll be a link to TonyCaravanLive.com. That's like stuff about me, this show, and these shirts and all that stuff, links. And then there's a link to Great Solar Stuff, which is where those kind of things, which you should have. And then below that, I have a link to that Cyrus Kirkpatrick guy that I mentioned about afterlife topics and metaphysics. You might want to explore his stuff, since he was that was kind of the inspiration, the kickoff point for me to get into this discussion today. Just something different, a different type of show. You know, from time to time, I'll do this. Other times it'll just be some of my usual rants and things of that nature. So I don't know. What can I say?
He went forward to another time, 1,000 years from now.
Sometimes I feel that way. Anyway, take care. Have a great weekend. Stay healthy and all of that stuff. And keep an open mind to all this stuff, you know? You might have to watch this video twice. Check out that 2 hours. You know, you might want to go back to that and like listen to that again, or find that beat poetry track of mine. I think it's fascinating. You know, these things, you know, I'm not currently writing. I wrote about 50 beat poetry tracks. I have these CDs. Let's see if I can find them. The Essential Beat Poetry of Tony Caravan. And as you can see, there's a considerable amount of tracks on there. Let me see. Actually, 2 hours isn't on this one. Robots is on this one, though. I don't think 2 hours made it. But this is available on Amazon as a CD only. But my digital tracks are available on iTunes and you know, Spotify and all those other kind of places. And YouTube, I posted them on YouTube too. So you could check those out. And like everything else, like I say, there's more dead people watching my stuff than the living. So maybe I'm just at that level of vibration. It's weird, though. It is weird if you look at my numbers. Doesn't make any sense. All right, I'm going to end it there. Have a great weekend. Cheers. Thanks for watching this video. Check out the links below through that by clicking on Show Me. And check out some of my other stuff if you're new. Subscribe, like, and all that happy you know what. And I'll talk to you probably tomorrow. I try to do this just about every day, if not every other day. But I've been consistent now for a long time. Cheers. Take care.